Super excited. It's Kimberly here with Power Living. As a nurse coach, Reiki master, and entrepreneur, I've built my life and work around helping and empowering others to live their best, healthiest, and most authentically happy and powerful lives. I share and visit with experts on all aspects of wellness: physical, emotional, financial, career, business, health, relationships, environment, and more. So if you want to step into your best self, go ahead and listen in each week as we share new and old ideas to set you up for the coming week as a fresh start for a better and better you. And I got to tell you, so I'm super excited to have Sibyl on with us. She's the founder of an amazing organization called Bread Encounters. And I'm just super, we're going to talk all things friendship and bread. You know, it's interesting. So Sibyl, I figured out you and I have been friends for almost 30 years.
Oh my word. Yeah.
We should just say
about that this morning. Yeah.
We can't be old enough to have been friends. So I got to thinking, you know, you and I, we've kind of, as we've journeyed through life together, we've kind of been through a lot of things.
Yes, we definitely have.
Babies and marriages and divorces and recreating ourselves, kind of like a phoenix or like sourdough. You punch it down and it rises yet again. And so interesting, as you and I have been talking recently about what you're doing with Bread Encounters. It's just really holistically nourishing, I would say. So I'm really happy to share some time with you. And gosh, if you would just share a little bit about, you know, what is this Bread Encounters? What are you all about? What's your mission and what are you excited about?
Okay, well, the one thing I love to talk about is bread and bread encounters. Normally I'm a very, I don't talk all that much, but when we talk, so you need to make sure you have me stop when I run out of time. So yes, so bread has always been something that I could connect to and something that would comfort me, whether it was like baking bread or sharing it with others or teaching other people. I just always found that there was so much positivity attached with the process of making bread. And so in 2017, I had once again gone through some very rough trials. I was consoling myself with all things bread related. And I went on the internet one night and was looking for just bread stuff. And I came across this TED Talk by a woman, an anthropologist from Bulgaria. Oh my gosh, Bulgaria. And her name is Nadezhda Savova-Grigova. Very long name. And so she was on this TED Talk and she was talking about bread and the power that bread had to bring people together. She talked about peace and unity and inclusion and cultural arts. And I was just totally mesmerized when I was listening to her. And I thought, oh my gosh, this woman, everything that I felt about bread and that's just kind of been inside of me, but never came out, she just verbalized everything. And I was just so thrilled and excited. And so I decided that I needed to email her. So I found out, I mean, there was not an email with the TED Talk, but I just tracked her down and I sent her an email and just to let her know how excited I was and how much she inspired me. And it was that talk that kind of sparked something inside of me or ignited something. And what was just a tiny flame at the time just kind of grew. And from that talk, I mean, there's a lot of time in between until I founded Bread Encounters, but that was what started me on my journey. And I just knew without a doubt that I was going to make a difference or have to make a difference in this world with bread, and focusing specifically on kindness, because that is a value that is very important to me And I think there is not enough of it in the world. And so bread is my medium on how I wanted personally, and of course now I'm involving a lot of people in it, to change the world with kindness through bread. And that's our mission, actually, is to inspire and spread kindness and create human connection by making and baking bread together, and by engaging the community to bake bread for those with food insecurities. And we also bring about positive social change through very unique bread activities, which foster inclusion, unity, and creative arts, cultural
It's
arts.
funny as I listen to you share some of these concepts that just they feel good in here. I think about, as I make, and today's my bread baking day, and so we've got bread and cookies and bath bombs that we've been making for people I have no idea in this new neighborhood we live in. And I just think about how, throughout my life, kind of like as I've made bread or cookies or whatever and take it to friends or people I don't know, it's a door opener. And when you spoke about kindness, I thought about, and inclusion, I thought about that. It's a great way to welcome yourself or others into a neighborhood. And I always feel like when I drop off bread or cookies or something like that, especially bread, I think, it just makes you feel like when you're giving this beautiful loaf of bread, it makes you feel like, it's not expensive. You didn't go out and spend a lot of money, but it's love, and you really feel like starting. I care about you with this loaf of bread. And especially, new neighbors is to I don't know you, but I care about you. And I just think that's really beautiful, Sibyl.
Yeah, thank you. And that's also a very old tradition in some countries that when you start a new family or you move into a new home, that you are gifted by someone a loaf of bread and salt.
And salt. Interesting.
And salt. Yeah.
Salt does make everything taste great, and it's a fantastic antibacterial. I'm just saying.
So yeah, and so it's so that you will always have, it's a wish for you to always have enough bread and not always enough salt in your home, that you'll never run out. So it's a really nice tradition. Yeah.
And it's interesting to me, I think, and if you and I have talked a little bit about this before, but bread kind of has a bad rap today. And it's just always, it doesn't compute up here. I think bread, commercialized, heavily altered bread, like, you big bread making. I mean, we like things that are fluffy and less nutrition and more fluff. And you could talk about that concept on a whole lot of levels for hours, right? Give us less substance and more fluff, and we eat that sweet pill and put ourselves to sleep. But bread, I mean, when I love it. So when I make bread, you and I, we talked about using our wheat grinders. I still have a nice little stash of wheat from a guy I know in Clark Fork, Idaho, where we moved from, North Idaho. When you bake bread with flour that's warm, just the feel of it, it's freshly ground. It's not been sitting on a shelf for, I don't know, a year or whatever, it's months, it's different. The way that loaf rises and fills the whole home with, oh my gosh, I don't add gluten to it. Bread already has gluten. And I think it's not fair that bread has the rap it does. I totally get it. And I'm not saying that celiac or gluten intolerances aren't real, but we've developed this because of stripping away a lot of the nutrients from wheat and adding in more gluten to make it, I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Well, yes. There's so much that goes along with that. The entire process has changed.
Yes.
And you said, yeah, we're stripping it of nutrients. Well, yes, actually, when you're buying regular flour in the supermarket, the white flour, you have taken out everything that is good from the grain. So the endosperm and the wheat germ, those are the things that have the most nutrition in it. And that's what's been taken out. And then the funny thing is that now they're adding it back in, or you're buying wheat germ and things to put back in. Well, yeah, white flour in itself really has like close to zero nutritional value. No. And then on top of that, now you're using that flour, white flour, in a commercial setting. You're trying to get your, for better, high profit, you're making your bread in like less than 2 hours, which is completely opposite of the way that bread used to be produced when we didn't have all of these issues. And so bakers used to use, and when you use the sourdough instead of the commercial yeast, you need to give the dough time to rise. And that is a very, very important factor that is missing now, because in those 2 hours, from making the dough to baking the bread, that is not enough time to break down the things that we have a difficult time to digest, since we are not cows. So there's so many things that the process has changed and what we use. And like Kimberly said, when you grind some flour, and this is something that probably most of you have never smelled, the smell of fresh flour. If you open your bag of flour from the grocery store, you open it, you smell nothing. Bleach, if anything, that's right, which is a scary thing. But if you grind fresh wheat, and any grain, doesn't even have to be wheat, but it's like that earthy kind of smell, and you smell, it's like goodness. Yeah. And that's the stuff that's being taken out, and it's so sad. And yes, no wonder, that's one reason why people have these sensitivities to. And
they haven't had for centuries, since the dawn of man, right? Wheat has sustained life for centuries. Doesn't go bad. It stores, has an incredible shelf life. You got bread and honey, sister. I'm telling you, I can ride out the zombie apocalypse, right?
That's right.
And it's getting this bad rap, and it's.
So may I throw something in here? So if anybody's listening and they are dealing with gluten sensitivity, I would suggest, and we actually, this just happened to us once again, we had a lady at a farmer's market who told me that she was off all bread because it gave her bloating, it made her uncomfortable, all of those symptoms. And I said, have you had some real sourdough? Have you tried some real sourdough and see if you experience the same symptoms? And she asked, what is real sourdough? And because when you buy it in the store, generally you're not getting it. It may say sourdough, but it's an additive of, they add some ascorbic acid or something. Yeah, there's other things in there. But real sourdough, it means that you have a culture and it's only flour, salt, and the wild yeast of the sourdough, and there is nothing else in it. So it's the fermentation process then that is actually sourdough. And so my one of my board members, she baked and has been now baking bread for her, because the lady was so excited because she could eat the real sourdough without being so negatively affected with store-bought bread. So this is my tip for you. Find a baker that makes real sourdough. And if you're having those issues, you may want to try. If you are a celiac, of course, then wheat is just totally off for you. So, but for those who have a sensitivity, you might want to try that.
That's wonderful. So tell us a little bit about, because I know I'm super excited to get some of your starter, sister. Tell us a little bit about how can people who maybe are intrigued and maybe they want to learn more about or have their own experiment in their own kitchen. How do they get a hold of you, and tell us a little bit about your starter?
So I've came across this starter a few years ago, and it's called the Carl Griffith 1847 Oregon Trail sourdough starter. So it's really a mouthful. And this gentleman, Carl Griffith, had this starter in his family since the times of the Oregon Trail. So it's a pioneer sourdough. And he has been sharing it for a long, long time. He did pass away, I think about 10 years ago, but they're friends of Carl Griffith started a foundation, and they perpetuate the sourdough by feeding it and drying it. And you can write to them, and they will send them a self-addressed stamped envelope, and they will send you dried in dried form the sourdough starter. And that's how I got this starter, and I reconstituted it and was just amazed because it was so vigorous. And everybody that I shared with, they all say it's so vigorous. And yeah, so since I started Bread Encounters during this Corona shutdown period in my neighborhood in Paradise Hills, I put a Facebook message in our local Facebook page to let everybody know that if they wanted to start sourdough, because a lot of people did start baking, that I would share my sourdough with anybody who had interest, along with some mentoring as well. And so I had, over a period of time, quite a few people in the neighborhood, and it was really nice to get to know people. So it was another, part of our mission is to create that human connection, which happened again in this case. And so that is how we're spreading. So they actually got little pots of sourdough, but when I send it to the mail to people, and all you need in your little packet is like 2 teaspoons of dried sourdough, and you'll have to reconstitute it, and you'll be getting instructions for that. And it's very simple. And give it a few days, and you'll have a bubbling sourdough that you can start baking your nourishing and healthful bread with. Yeah, so it's great stuff. And apart from bread, of course, there's so many other things that you can do with sourdough. The usual is like waffles and pancakes. I have a really great sourdough scone recipe. I do a lot of research on this, and we were looking for the perfect sourdough chocolate chip cookie, and I found that, and that is so awesome too.
Oh boy!
Yeah,
I'm happy.
So there are so many things that you can make with sourdough, and the sourdough culture itself is very healthy. A lot of research has been done on this. It is both and I'm not a chemist or a biologist, but it's both a probiotic and a prebiotic. Yeah.
So and for your gut microbiome, which has a lot to do with your immunity, right? So, and that's a super hot topic right now.
It is. And also there's this lady in the UK who sourdough, she has, it's the sourdough school. Yes. Vanessa Kimball. And she's been doing a lot of research and study on this. And she actually has a master's in bread and the gut, or it's the connected. I don't remember exactly what. So that's what she does. That's what she studied. And she's just awesome. And the latest thing that they're talking about is how your gut microbiome affects your mental health, and how sourdough plays into that. So really a lot of stuff going on right now. And so we're learning more and more about that. So yeah, sourdough is a huge part of being healthy. So.
And I just think you could take it so many ways. There are health benefits, psychologically, being able to get your hands in the bread. So just us girls, right? My bread baking took a whole new level. My bread baking became excellent when my girlfriend told me the secret. How do you tell when your bread's, perfectly punched and risen? And I'm like, how do you do? Because her bread was amazing. And Laura Dale, if she's watching. Anyway, she says, it should feel like a breast. I'm like, oh.
I have actually not heard that. Thank you for sharing that.
I'm like, okay, it does kind of feel like a breast.
Good one.
Now we're going to have a whole lot of men wanting to know, how do I get me some starter?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Oh, anyway, I digress, but there's just so many, it's so great to be able to not only to have that nutritional component, but to really take the time to do something for yourself, your family, and others that you can't buy that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I could share a little story with you right now, because I'm being interviewed on the for a magazine. It's called Bread for Change with Bread Houses Network, which we are a licensee of. And one of their questions, they asked me to share a personal story from one of our participants, because we do these community bakes with people from church. And so I've asked some of the participants from the last community bake that we did if they would share how this community bake positively impacted their own lives. I mean, we know that the people who received it, they were from a transitional housing center, and of course they were very happy to receive fresh bread. But it was very not really surprising, because I hear this, but just this particular story really made my heart happy. Because it involved a grandmother and her grandchildren and the entire neighborhood to benefited from it. And of course, the people at the housing center. So this grandma had signed up in this community bake to make 4 loaves of bread. So she told her grandkids about, and the one was 9 and the other one was 13. And so the one girl was really interested in it, and they made some practice loaves, and it came out really nicely. And so they baked the practice loaves, which they ate. Then they baked the 4 loaves for the community bake. And then they were just so thrilled with their newfound skill that they had, that they baked, I forget how many more loaves. The total amount that they baked until she wrote me the story was 21 loaves. And so after the bake, they had a dinner. The parents had a dinner, and the girls made it for the dinner. So they got raving reviews, of course. And then they decided to bake bread and go out into the neighborhood to all the neighbors that they hadn't met. So this is what just so excited me, and made new connections with them by giving them a loaf of bread and showing that they care, and they got to know each other. So yeah, it's just stories like that just makes me so happy, because this truly is what the mission of Bread Encounters is all about: caring for others, creating that connection, and
a real community. Yep.
Yes, unity and community and inclusion. That's
I
what
love
it's all
that so
about.
much. You take care of the community that you're in, and you're safe. You and your community are safe. It's interesting, kind of digressing, kind of not, but as for years and years, and as a home health nurse, I was always surprised by when I'd ask people, well, who do you call when your chips are down? You can't get out, you can't go pick up your meds, you can't go get groceries. So, who do you call? I don't know. I don't know anybody. They surrounded by people, and they had no neighbors, nobody they could call on, nobody that would help them. It kind of like in a lot of our communities, we live close together and we're so far apart. And especially when you look at kind of what's going on now socially, which I won't talk a whole lot about because it hurts my heart. But when you look at what's going on socially, if we really knew each other as people, I don't think we'd see that kind of separation. It's a lot harder to turn a blind eye or to hurt somebody, right? That you know and care about. So I just think that story is beautiful on a whole lot of levels, but especially, when times are bad, it's really nice to know that you're safe and you have a community around you. A neighborhood is a community. I think that's beautiful. What a great way to develop that community spirit in a neighborhood. If you don't have it yet, you can do that with a simple loaf of bread, which is what pennies to make.
Absolutely. And we've come up with this very simple loaf. So we've actually had people that have never baked a loaf before. And I have another story from another lady who had never baked bread before, reluctantly signed up to participate in the community bake. And she was able to produce this loaf of bread, and it gave her so much confidence. She didn't think she could do it. She was thrilled the way it came out. And now she also is teaching her granddaughters how to bake bread too. So yeah, it's just awesome. So.
How wonderful. What a beautiful way to help with, like you talked about, the food insecurity and increasing community safety and inclusion, and put food in bellies.
Yes.
Good, nourishing food.
Absolutely.
Infinite food, nourishing food in bellies.
Yeah. So when we do these community bakes, it really is, it's a win-win on all levels, and there's so many levels. So yeah, so this is part of what we have been doing. We're kind of flying under the radar with COVID because everybody is baking the bread in their own homes. Obviously, I made a video which I need to redo because it was totally unedited, and I was warning people, make sure you don't have any pets, and everything is nice and sanitized. And we also give them gloves at the end to take out the bread. But in the video, I was at a friend's house that I was house sitting. And after I reviewed the video, and I haven't had time to make a new one yet, I see a cat walking behind me on a table that I wasn't using, but oh my gosh. So yeah, so I always warn when I send out that video to the people that participate, this is an edited version, and just, make sure you follow my words and not what you see.
That's great. Well, how do people, if people want to learn more, if they're a novice to bread making, or if they want to do something in their community, or they just want to help you with your mission, how do they do that? How do they get involved? In what ways can they help?
Okay, so the best way is to contact me at breadencounters at gmail.com, which is our email. And we do have a website also, and yes, I encourage you to go and check it out. If you would like the sourdough, you can email me with your address and I will send it to you. If you would like to make a donation, we would be extremely happy about that too. You can do that on our web page. There is a donate button. If you wanted to maybe participate in future Zoom meetings that I'm planning to actually show the process of the bread making, this very simple process. It makes great bread, but it really is so easy that even somebody who hasn't baked will be able to do it. So just send me your email and I'll keep you on the email list. So when I schedule the Zoom meeting, we can all come together and do it together. But the easiest way is just to email me and just let me know what it is that how you would like to get involved, and we will figure something out.
How wonderful. So you can get in touch with Sibyl at breadencounters at gmail.com. Her website is breadencounters.org or .com. And Sibyl, I'm just so glad. I always love to talk with you, and I'm really glad to visit with you today on what you're doing. I think it's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. And certainly thank you for inviting me. That was very unexpected. And I'm very honored that you decided to talk with me about bread encounters, because like I said, that is one thing I can always talk about.
All right. Well, thanks again.
All right. Take care. Bye.